Hi, my name is Josiah Smith. I'm a PA functional medicine practitioner and owner of Holistic Hormone Solutions. And this is my good friend, Roger Drummer. And you'd like to give yourself a quick little introduction?
Yes, hi, I'm Roger, and I am the owner of HerbWorks.com and a diplomat of Chinese herbology. I specialize in stress, and I make formulas for brain function and offsetting stress.
Very nice. And talking about stress, we are going to discuss specifically what you do. We're going to talk about adaptogens, the history, and how everyone that's watching can utilize adaptogens into their daily routine and upregulating whatever health function that they may be lacking.
Well, adaptogens are something that I'm extremely fascinated about. In fact, I've switched my whole business over to just making formulas for stress because of adaptogens. Mm-hmm. Adaptogens are a new class of herbs. They've probably been around in this country maybe 15 years. And they're what I call nature's perfect food, because an adaptogen is basically there to help your nervous system adapt to stress. And this is what all experts will tell you is the cause of 80% of all illness is stress. And your inability to be able to flow into stress and flow back out to let go of it, and the inability of your body to hold on to energy during stress. And this is what adaptogens are for. They're basically herbs that are tuned in to your nervous system, especially the HPA Axis. Mm-hmm. So they strengthen all those glands so that your body can have a healthy stress response without getting worn out, and then move in and out of that response and stay in a healthy state of energy.
Sure. So let's define, first of all, we know what adaptogens are. Now let's talk about the stress response very briefly and what exactly is the HPA Axis and how that may coordinate a lot of other body functions.
Right. Well, if you're probably having one body function that dominates your everyday life, it's the stress response. Mm-hmm. And the HPA Axis stands for hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. That's kind of the triangle of your glandular system that's involved in the response. Your hypothalamus, sensing a danger, sends a signal to your pituitary. It activates your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, and then it activates your adrenals. And so this response then puts you into fight or flight, meaning that you're ready to either run away from danger or to fight danger. And that's the response your body has dozens of times every single day at different levels. Your body gets primed up, you get ready to fight or flight, and then you're locked into that stress response.
Yeah, and it's interesting is when we look into biochemistry with this, a lot of people, there's this fascinating term called adrenal fatigue. Okay, right. And I just want to get some clarification. This is a misnomer. It was popularized during the 1990s, but if you look in PubMed in the literature, it does not exist. It is not supported. So what is a better term for this? HPA Axis, dysregulation, hypo, cortisolism. So it's a dysfunction, and it comes to brain chemistry. It's actually not a weakening or a fatigability of the adrenal glands, but it's from the sensory output from the brain to the adrenals, and that cortisol output, and also the adrenaline and the noradrenaline, which is the first thing that's actually released in response to a stressful event.
Right, and so everybody's familiar with cortisol and the stress hormone, and you can have low cortisol, excessive cortisol. Mm-hmm. All these things have to do with your stress response, your inability of your body to regulate itself. And this is what's so important about the HPA Axis and stress, is that it's the loss of your body's ability to regulate normal functions, what they call homeostasis, that leads to all these issues with your health related to stress. So when you regulate that, basically what you're saying that you're doing with adaptogenic herbs is giving your herbs food that make them healthier and allow them to do their natural process. Your natural process is to have a stress response And when the stressor is over, move on and let your body secrete different hormones to go into recovery. Well, where most of us are missing the recovery phase. And so, you combine adaptogens. This is what I do. I combine adaptogens with herbs that help in the recovery phase so that your body has all the fuel it needs to actually have a proper response and a proper recovery.
We know, Roger, that it's not all about the herbs. It supports. So there are actually other things that are going to be foundational, and this is going to have to be how you actually react to that response. How well you're sleeping, the nutrition, your exercise, your community, your relationships. These are all key fundamental. We're not going to supplement your way out of any type of a health problem, but adaptogens, because the non-specific response to any stressor, positive, negative on the body, these have been found to be extremely helpful in the recovery phase. Now, can we discuss maybe some very specific blends or types of adaptogens that you have found useful and that have also they have been clinically studied too to some degree?
Right. No, there's quite a few. Two come to mind that actually have been shown in clinical trials to reduce cortisol. But cortisol again is just a small part of stress. Mm-hmm. It's about how your body is able to regulate itself. And, like anything in the health market, things get hyped. Things all of a sudden now, 20 years ago we had 3 or 4 adaptogens and now we have 40 of them or something. But in my mind, if an adaptogenic herb does not regulate HPA Axis, it's not an adaptogenic herb. It's not a true adaptogen. So I stick in my formulas, I stick to eleuthero ginseng, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, schizandra. These are the types of herbs I base my practice on and my formulas because they work. They do have a pronounced effect on your glandular system and the regulation of it.
Now, Roger, do you find singly or in combination when we're putting adaptogens together in your formulations? Will a single adaptogen work, or do you find when you're adding several, because of their non-specific responses to the body and the stress adaptation, which do you find your greatest success is?
Well, I find a greater success combining them.
Okay.
And both of my major stress formulas are a combination of the 4 herbs I mentioned and another one called rhodiola, which I left out. But rhodiola has a major effect on your pituitary. And that's where I find that its strength is. It's a very powerful herb for that. And this is what you find with most adaptogens. Each one of them has a particular strength, a part of your body that it's a little better at regulating. Like eleuthero ginseng, I find to be more of an adrenal restorative than a regulator of stress, even though it does regulate stress a bit. But reishi mushroom in particular is really good for your pituitary, very good for your thyroid gland, affects your adrenal glands. So it's more of a balanced herb. So they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And that's why I like to use a combination of each to get that full spectrum effect.
Okay, and with this full spectrum effect, I think it's great when you're combining everything. Now, with sourcing, because like with anything, there are a lot of supplements out there and even energy recovery drinks, I'm finding that they're using adaptogens. It seems to be everyone's on the bandwagon now because they realize how awesome it is. But the caveat here, like with any supplement or drug, quality is not always the same. Like with your blends you're using, and for your experience, what are you using to source and find the most pure blends, and also the concentration you're using?
Well, this is the important thing about herbs, is all quality. If you look at a product on the market and everything just says 4-to-1 extract or 5-to-1 extract, which is what the industry went through years ago, thinking that if they standardized things, it would be better. Well, eleuthero ginseng, which I use, is a 40-to-1 extract. So if you're getting a 5-to-1 of eleuthero, I don't know how there's anything in it, really, because eleuthero ginseng, it's wood. It's a piece of wood. It looks like something that you hit with your lawnmower. And and when you have that piece of wood, it takes 40 pounds of it to extract enough active ingredient out of it to get a pound of extract. So if you're doing a 5-to-1, there can't be much in it. Reishi mushroom can be anywhere from a 12 to 15-to-1 because that's a woody mushroom. Depending on how dry it is when they harvest it, that's going to require a different extract. Ashwagandha might be an 8 to a 10-to-1 extract. Every herb is different. You have to know how that herb extracts the best to its natural blend of active ingredient. If you take an herb like reishi mushroom, 10 years ago it was popular that they would take reishi and extract it out to one chemical and be a 50-to-1. But what you find out is that energetically that herb was dead. There was no connection to its herbal properties. It was one chemical. And one chemical is like taking a drug. You get some effect, but it's going to be harsh. It's not going to be like the effect of the herb as a food going into your body and how your body recognizes herbs as foods. So we have every single herb in our formulas extracted by itself. We don't put it all in one tea like they like to do and extract it all at one time, because there's herbs in my formula that work fantastic at 5-to-1, some are 8-to-1, some are 10-to-1s, some are 40-to-1s. You have to know that and get it all extracted on its own and then blended together to make your own particular formula.
Well, great. And I know you have decades of experience doing this, and the stress response being very non-specific and doing those lifestyle things with adding additional supplementation, nutraceutical, but more specifically here, the adaptogens, because they do help the stress response. I mean, I can attest to that. I have had my own health crisis. I have found adaptogens have been very helpful for that. And even your product, he and she, myself personally, I've been using it for almost a year now, and it's part of my morning routine. Also with meditation, gratitude, and just making sure I get a good night's sleep, that does help with the stress response.
Well, one of the things with adaptogens too is that in all the research, what they're actually talking about as the benefits you get from it all are attached to a certain dose. There's a certain quality and a certain dose you have to take for a period of time. The problem with most products on the market is that they don't use that dose. They don't come anywhere near to what you're supposed to have. And I see this a lot with energy drinks. Anytime you get an energy drink in a can or a bottle that has herbs in it, I can guarantee you there's hardly enough herb in that product to do anything to you, because you can't mix that much herb in a liquid without having to use a ton of preservatives and not using too much herb, because it'll kill the taste. You just can't make a soda pop out of a bunch of herbs because there won't be enough in it to do anything. It's just a soda pop.